They say you've never truly lived until you've been a part of a life-altering experience at Bristol Motor Speedway. Well, I can officially check that one off the list. Hi, hello, and welcome into the Ball Don't Lie podcast. My name is Austin Elmore. This is back to a more traditional, regular style of the Ball Don't Lie podcast, and you might hear it in my voice a little bit. You might hear me clearing my throat some. Yeah, I've been dealing with throat issues. That's how it goes when you talk every day for a living and you've been in and out of all sorts of different weather and whatnot, and especially after what I experienced over the weekend. I was at MLB Firefest 2025, also known as the MLB Speedway Classic at Bristol Motor Speedway. I have talked extensively about my experience on several radio stations already. I'm not going to rehash the entire thing here because chances are, if you're listening to this, you're here to listen about the Bengals and learn about the Bengals, and that's what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be a normal show, kind of what I've been doing for the training camp episodes, but I wanted to release this on a typical Ball Don't Lie Wednesday and throw in a little bit of the baseball talk as well. Let me just say this about the Bristol Motor Speedway MLB Speedway Classic. It was miserable. It did not go nearly like anybody planned. By now, you've seen all the posts. You've seen people complaining. You've seen the issues. The lines were enormous. The security was awful. There was just a complete lack of preparation by everybody involved in running this event. And from the people that I've talked to, those that were working the event as credentialed media, those that were there as fans, those that were there as special guests of Major League Baseball or the Cincinnati Reds, they all kind of say the same thing, that they got the feeling that this was less about the experience and more about the number. And by the number, they mean trying to cram as many people as possible into that stadium so that they could set a record. 91,000, something like that, ended up being the total. It broke all these different records. That's cool, but the experience in and of itself was terrible. Lines for over an hour for food, and by the time you get up there, they're running out of the food. I mentioned earlier that there was almost no security whatsoever. A friend of ours, Joe Daneman from Fox 19, told the story on our show about how two guys, college-age kids, just walked behind him saying, "We're with him," all the way through 3 credential checkpoints and into basically the infield of the Speedway Classic. It rained incessantly. The forecast fooled everybody, including Major League Baseball. They were not prepared for that amount of people. It was a complete and total shit show in every way imaginable. And I complained about it a little bit on Twitter, and people got mad at me for complaining. And you're right. I shouldn't be complaining about an experience that I get to have. But if you pay a lot of money to go and experience something, you should feel like you're being accommodated. And I didn't feel that way. And I don't think most people that were at Bristol Motor Speedway the other day felt that way, including those that got the special, more preferential behind-the-scenes treatment from Major League Baseball, from the Braves, and from the Reds. It was just a failure of an event. And thinking back on it, I'm laughing because I know that forever I'll have this great story and this great memory. And I've been going through a rough couple of weeks with a lot of different stuff going on in my life, and I think I'm mostly behind that. I'm hoping I'm mostly behind that, and maybe even by the time we have this conversation next week, I'll have some better news to share. But I just was thankful to get away. I was originally I didn't want to get away, and I was I should probably stay here, and I got so much other stuff to do, but I just allowed myself to unplug for a weekend. I wasn't checking my email. I wasn't worried about other stuff. I was just all right, let me just try to have fun. And then the game and the experience went the way it went. And I'm okay, that's kind of par for the course. But looking back on it, I had so much fun hanging out with my friends, just laughing and joking and making jokes and going in 6 hours together or 12 hours together on a car ride and stopping and getting snacks and meeting the side characters and side quests along the way from Cincinnati to Bristol, and just joking and laughing and memories and just being with them, like it was so cool. It was so fun. Like yeah, I don't know if you guys know much about the love languages, right? The five love languages. Mine is always quality time, whether that's with my friends or with anyone else that I might be in a relationship with. I just love quality time. I love those experiences. I love shared experiences, good or bad, or good or inconvenient. I just love the memories that come from that and the jokes that come from that. And like I was actually just joking with someone recently. 10 years ago, me and a couple of my friends went to the NFL Combine, scouting combine, and I was just like, let's see what happens, see what we can do. And I had fun, and it was a silly, stupid experience that we really didn't accomplish anything or make that many great memories. But 10 years later, it's still a running joke about how ridiculous of this thought was that we could go and get into the scouting combine. Back then, you couldn't. And just the different stuff that we experience. And so maybe that's corny, maybe that's cheesy, but that's me. I'm a little bit corny, I'm a little bit cheesy, and I love those moments. And it was cool to be able to share that with my friends and have this memory of this ridiculous, stupid event happened, and and we got to experience that together, and we'll be able to make fun of that forever. And I don't know that I'll ever step foot inside Bristol, Tennessee again. Good Lord willing. I don't think I'll be going to any races at Bristol Motor Speedway between now and the end of my life, which I hope is a long time. All right, you want to talk about football? Let's talk a little bit about football. The Bengals play football this week. They play football tomorrow. Tomorrow night in Philadelphia, preseason game number 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Kickoff is at 7:30, and the Bengals are going to play their starters. Yes, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, the number one team offense, and mostly the number one defense, is going to play on Thursday against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a big deal because the emphasis is on starting fast. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Well, Zach Taylor said on Tuesday that he plans for Joe Burrow and the starters to play a quarter-ish, get a quarter or quarter plus of reps against the Eagles. And then he said he expects them to get even more playing time against the Washington Commanders in the second preseason game. That one's going to be an ESPN Monday Night Football broadcast. So this is good news, I think, but it's also nerve-wracking news for me. I have been pounding the table on this podcast and on the airwaves that my biggest concern is the Bengals' offensive line. And here we are through the first couple weeks of training camp, and that seems to be the biggest concern. If you haven't been paying attention while I've been away, the defensive line continues to win the day at training camp. They continue to dominate the offensive line. They continue to throw off the timing of the Bengals offense. That hasn't been all bad, but you couple that with the fact that Amarius Mims has been going through some sort of mysterious injury with a cast on his right hand. He is going to play on Thursday in Philadelphia, excuse me, according to Zach Taylor. So that's good news. But he's missed a lot of reps. He's missed some time. The right guard spot has been up and down, and Cody Ford and Lucas Patrick dealing with injury. And that's just been a weird situation. You're still trying out a rookie left guard in Dylan Fairchild. Orlando Brown Jr. has been beaten multiple times by rookie edge rusher Shamar Stewart. Just overall, the offensive line does not look like a cohesive unit. And on the surface, okay, that's one thing. In practice, okay, that's one thing. But when there's live bullets flying in Philadelphia, whether that's against Philly starters or not, that's an issue because now Joe Burrow becomes in danger. And that's a major, major issue and a red flag for me. I'm worried about Joe Burrow's safety with this offensive line not really performing up to par going into a preseason game where he's expected to play at least a quarter or several series against the Eagles. That, to me, is a concern. I'll be watching through my fingers, scared to death, watching that game on Thursday. By the way, I will be hosting post-game sports talk after the Bengals game against the Eagles. It'll be from 12 a.m. until 2 a.m. on 700 WLW and ESPN 1530. I invite you to join me. You can listen anywhere on the iHeartRadio app, and we'll talk extensively about what happened in preseason game number 1 for the Bengals. Now, who is playing, who isn't playing? We know most of the first team offense is going to play, including Amarius Mims, but Mike Gesicki will not be playing. He's been nursing an injury, and the Bengals are going to be cautious with him. He will not play for the Bengals on Thursday night. And there are a run of defenders that are not going to play. Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt, maybe the Bengals' two best cornerbacks, are not going to play in that game. They've been nursing injuries. Cam Taylor-Britt been the most notable injury. Dax Hill still coming back from that torn ACL he suffered last year during the regular season. BJ Hill, they just kind of been easing him into it. So he had an off-season injury. He's been slowly going through camp. They're not going to risk anything with him in that first game. Cedric Johnson and Marco Wilson. Cedric Johnson, a defensive end. Marco Wilson, another backup cornerback. Those two will not be participating in the game on Thursday. Also, new signing Noah Fant, Bengals' new tight end that they signed, is not going to be participating either. He obviously just got to Cincinnati. The goal is for him to be a part of next week's preseason game against the Washington Commanders, and he have a more full grasp of the Bengals' offensive playbook. I think that's mainly the big thing. Trey Hendrickson, of course, not going to play. He's still in Cincinnati and being a part of the team, but is not participating in practices or drills or anything like that. He is helping the young players. And again, one of the storylines from over the weekend when I was gone was that Shamar Stewart continues to flash. And he flashes not just with the bull rush, but also with his ability to bend and get outside those tackles. That's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's noteworthy that Shamar is adding more than just the bull rush to his game. And he's more than just a one-trick pony. I think that can be really big for the Bengals. Still waiting to see some flashes from Miles Murphy and hoping he gets a chance against the Eagles on Thursday night. The Bengals also released their first depth chart of the preseason. Now, all in all, this doesn't mean very much, but there was a couple things that stood out to me. The first one is that Lucas Patrick is considered the starting right guard or the first string right guard over Cody Ford. You remember Lucas Patrick went through an injury early in camp, hasn't practiced as much as Cody. Cody has been getting the reps with the ones, but Lucas Patrick on the depth chart is at least listed as number one. Also thought it was interesting, the Bengals listed Trey Hendrickson as the third defensive end. That I felt like was just a bit of a shot towards Trey Hendrickson because he hasn't been practicing and caused a little bit of ruckus. Drew Sample is also listed as the number one tight end. That just means the Bengals, how they define that position and who Drew Sample is to them. Mike Gesicki is more of a wide receiver, but Drew Sample shows up first on that. I wouldn't read too much into the depth chart. I don't think it means all that much. And certainly that will change between now and the start of the season and definitely will change after the preseason game in Philadelphia. Here's what I want to see in Philadelphia. First and foremost, what does Dylan Fairchild look like? The rookie left guard. He's going to get a chance to run with the ones. How does he perform? And then how does his potential backup in Cordell Volson perform, who basically was one of the worst offensive linemen in football last year and lost his job and took a pay cut? How's he perform? That's not a name we've talked about much. The young linebackers, Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter, how do they communicate? How do they lead the defense? How do they work with Logan Wilson and that defensive line? That, I think, is a big part of the game as well. And the other thing is, I've talked about this before, the kick return battle. What's it look like? Isaiah Williams, Charlie Jones, Jermaine Burton. Is anybody going to emerge there and actually make a splash to potentially cement themselves for the Bengals? Last thing is this. The Hall of Fame game happened last weekend, and I didn't get to see as much of the Hall of Fame ceremonies as I normally like to see, but I did see in the Hall of Fame game for the first time the use of the Hawkeye technology, which tells officials and fans exactly where the ball is in relation to the yard to gain. You might see this sort of technology with the automated ball strike system in Major League Baseball, which is coming next year, or most notably in or out in tennis matches, where it'll kind of have this animated zoom towards the line. You see where the ball hit, whether it was in, whether it was out. It's basically the same thing. There's these microchips that are ultra accurate, according to the NFL, that will tell you where exactly the ball is at in comparison to the line to gain. So the chain gang is still there and the line to gain and all that is still there. We all know where that's at. But instead of having to do measurements or having an index card or whatever it might be, you know exactly where the ball is at, whether it's fourth and short, whether it's a first down, whether it's a long fourth and one, whether it's a short fourth and one, any of that, you know exactly where the ball is at in relation to the yard to gain. Curious to see how that works out throughout preseason and especially as we get into the regular season. That does it for me. Once again, an invitation for you to listen from midnight until 2 a.m. after Bengals football, Thursday night on ESPN 1530 and 700 WLW. Actually, I guess that's Friday morning from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. and on the iHeartRadio app for the post-game show. Looking forward to that. We'll be back with another podcast, hopefully on Monday, because the Bengals do practice over the weekend. We'll start looking ahead to the Commanders. We'll recap the game, the whole 9 yards. That is coming up next week, hopefully on Monday. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. You can follow me anywhere and everywhere at Audie Elmore, AUTYELMORE. I will see you on the next one, whenever that may be. And as always, have fun, be safe, go Bucks.